talking about estimation, graphs, and mathematical models. But most importantly, we're going to talk about or emphasize estimation. It is a process of arriving at an answer, an approximate answer to a question. Three methods we're going to use are going to be rounding numbers. So this should be a quick and easy review for everybody. We're going to use graphs, and we're going to be using mathematical models. I hope you'll pay close attention because this particular lesson is reading those graphs and charts that they like to put on the SAT, ACT, those big standardized testing type things. So we're going to get some practice. All right, so the first one we're going to talk about today, then I've split this lesson up into two parts. First part is going to be rounding the numbers, and then the next two are going to be, tomorrow's lesson is going to be using the graphs. You know what? This is what happens when I talk and write at the same time. That was supposed to say mathematical models, not mathematical graphs. Okay, so moving right along, we have rounding whole numbers. I put a nice little chart here to help remind you. But the rules of rounding, okay, we seem to have some difficulty with it, so I'm glad we're talking about it. Look at the digit to the right of the digit where rounding is to occur. If the digit to the right is 5 or greater, then you're going to add 1 to the digit to be rounded, and you're going to replace all digits to the right with zeros. If the digit to the right is less than 5, then you do not change the digit to be rounded, and you still replace all the digits to the right with zeros. So we're going to review some. We have our little placement chart, and if you notice there's rows here, so if you need to put that down there and so that it can help you figure out what place we're actually talking about, go for it. This is the number 6,751,593,103. So if I put it in here, it would be 6,751,593,103. Notice when I read that, I read what this word up here was every time I had a comma. Okay, so those commas really help you group the numbers. Okay, so to start off with, let's round to the nearest billion. So my billions, this is my number that dealing with billions, and so it said, that's the number I'm rounding. Look one digit to the right. Is this number 5 or greater? Yes, it is. So that means I'm going to add 1 to this number. That's the number being rounded. And then everything else is going to be zeros. And that's all we got. Let's try another one. 100 million. 100 millions is right here. Okay? That's the place I'm rounding. I look to the right. Is this number 5 or greater? Yes, it is. So that means I'm going to add 1 to this. Anything that comes before it doesn't change. Oh, add 1 becomes an 8. And, oh dearie. Thank you. Add 1 to it, and then everything after it is zeros. So this became 6,800,000,000. This became 7 billion. Sometimes this, well, we'll leave that at that. Okay, and the last one says round to the nearest 10,000. So I'm going to go find that 10,000th place, which is right here. Okay, it's my 9. So that means everything before it is going to stay the same. I look 1 to the right. Is this 5 or greater? No, it's not. So I'm not going to change that number. So I'm going to say 6, comma, 751, comma, 59. That was the number I was rounding. Everything after it becomes a 0. So this is to the nearest 10,000, 6,751,590,000. Now, we also need to talk about decimals, so I put the chart on this page just to make it easier for us. And to talk about decimals, we're actually going to use the digits of pi, 3.141592. So I'm going to put that in my chart like this, 3.141592. Okay, so it's asking me to round to the nearest tenth. So my tenth place is my 1. Okay, I'm still going to look one digit to the right. Is this 5 or greater? It is not. So I do not change this number. And if it's after the decimal, we don't write it. So that means if I want it to the tens place, that means I only want one digit. And we've had some practice with this. Okay, 10,000ths. Looking for my 10,000ths. That's the place that has the 5 in it. One after, I look one to the right. Is this number greater than 5? It is greater than 5, so I'm going to add 1 to the 5 and get a 6. So that means I'm going to have 3.1416. Okay, so that was rounding with our little chart, or rounding numbers that you need to know. Another more practical method, or something we need to be familiar with, is rounding to the nearest dollar. Okay? You've gone out to lunch. You and a friend ate at Ye Olde Cafe. The check for the meal showed up for $2.40. Showed soup was $2.40. Tomato juice, excuse me, was $1.25. Roast beef for $4.60. Chicken salad for $4.40. Two coffees $1.40. An apple pie for $1.85. And chocolate cake for $2.95. They want us to round the cost of each item to the nearest dollar and obtain an estimate. So the numbers that we have, I'm going to go ahead and write it. We got 240 plus 125 plus 460 plus 440 plus 140 plus 185 plus 295. And what I need to do is take each of those and round them to the nearest dollar. Okay? Hopefully you're all familiar with the fact that $2.40, I just need to look and see if that cents is more than half a dollar, which is 50 cents. So if it's less than 50 cents, it's going to stay what it is. Stay. 25 cents is going to stay. 60 cents is going to go up. 40 cents is going to stay. 40 cents is going to stay. 85 cents is going to go up. And 95 cents is going to go up. So if I add all those numbers together, then I get that this is $18. So that's my answer to this here, $18. The total bill before tax was given at $21.85. Is this amount reasonable? Absolutely not. We got $18. So that's good enough for you to say, no, it's not reasonable. Okay, last problem. A landscape architect who works full time earns $52 an hour. They want us to estimate the landscape architect's weekly salary. So estimating, generally when we're doing something like this, you only want one digit that's not a 0. So if I have 52, I'm going to round that to $50 per hour. And hopefully, you know, the hours have to cancel. And I'm going to week, and you know how many hours are in a week. This is not your typical week, you know, that on a clock. We're talking about somebody's salary, and so generally that goes with 40 hours in 1 week. That's what they're expecting people to work. So 50 times 40, 5 times 4 is 20 with 2 zeros. So his approximately weekly salary is $2,000 a week. Okay, they want us to estimate the landscape architect's annual salary. So if I'm going to take this, I'm going to take, okay, let's say he made 2,000 a week, and how many weeks in a year we're estimating. So again, there's 52 weeks in a year, but we're going to round that number to 50 weeks in a year, which is going to give us 5 times 2 is 10, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So that's $100,000 a year. So if you like working outside, go learn to be a landscape architect. That's all we have. This should prepare you to do your classwork exercises in class on Friday.